My name is Andro Erasmus from the Hoerskool Wonderboom in the 11th grade. My speech name is The Education Fiasco, co-written by me and a close friend. And this category which I'm competing is public speaking. If you were tasked to destroy a nation, what would you do? Well, here's what I would do. Education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. Wise words of former President Nelson Mandela. Education is an integral part of any society and is considered the cornerstone of any great civilization. Being so important, it's no surprise that when the education system fails, the imminent collapse of the nation follows suit. In 2023, Secretary General of the ANC, Fikile Mapulana, said in an interview with BBC Hard Talks that South Africa could become a failed state. The key factors contributing to the sentiment are our high unemployment rates, economic mismanagement, and load shedding. Ladies and gentlemen, all of these problems can be contributed to one thing: the lack of adequate education and the failure of our education system. South Africa has one of the most unequal school systems in the world. Our current school system fiasco is the result of racist past policies and the current administration's failure to properly address those policies. The gap between our top 20% of schools that are primarily urban schools and formerly in white sectors of the nation, and the other 80% of schools which are in townships and in the countryside, which were predominantly in the black areas of the former administration, is far wider than any other nation in this planet. The OECD said that our South Africa's education system ranks 75 out of 76 mainly rich countries. What this means is that unequal opportunities and education were not properly addressed, and a system that was once divided by race has been replaced by one divided by wealth. In an article published on February 11th, 2020, Amnesty International states that the right to quality education includes a safe learning environment and the infrastructure to do so. But for many of our pupils in this nation, this is not the reality, where they are left with outdated forms of education, improper infrastructure, and just a general lack of will to learn. Which leads us to one important question. Has the current democracy failed our pupils since the end of the ancient regime? Teach with Africa made the following statement. Teaching is at the core of the learning crisis. South Africa needs 25,000 new teachers each year, but only 6,000 teachers are trained annually. Ladies and gentlemen, we don't have enough teachers in this nation. So how can we expect that the future generations would be properly educated and trained for the workforce if they don't even have people who can train and lead them? But that's not the only problem. Our educators themselves do not have the necessary intelligence to train the pupils, with less than 25% of mathematics teachers being competent at the level that they teach. How would we expect a nation to do math when their math teachers can't even do algebra? It's not going to work, and it is doomed to fail. But undertrained teachers aren't the only problem. Overcrowded classrooms and relatively poor educational outcomes is prolonging these inequalities, and as a result is failing far too many pupils, with the less fortunate being left behind, according to a report issued by Amnesty International today. Which makes one think, could overcrowded classrooms and the failing education system contribute to our nation's dropout rates? A survey posted on Social Surveys Africa showed that dropout is not a big phenomenon. in South Africa, with only 1.2% of dropouts between the ages of 7 and 15 and 10% between the ages of 16 and 18. Now, ideally, one would want these numbers to be effectively zero. But the study has concluded that many school pupils are determined to finish school, and therefore that it is not such a big phenomenon where children just leave school. But they have found that barriers such as school fees have been partially overcome by no-fee exemption policies and bursaries, but other access costs like uniforms and transportation is keeping poverty-stricken households out of the school system. But I also found that the other major cause for educational dropouts are academic struggles. And the major cause of these academic struggles are overcrowded classrooms. But one might ask, why is dropout such a big deal? The answer is quite simple. High dropout rates lead to a high risk of uneducated masses. So then, why are we so focused on education? Why does the whole world hold its breath when their education systems fail? Why is it also sometimes used as a propaganda machine for governments? Does it really play such a key role in our civilization as we know it? The word civilization refers to advanced stages of human social interactions, characterized by complex social structures, cultural achievements, governments, and economic systems. And ladies and gentlemen, education plays a crucial role in each and every one of these systems. An essay posted on the importance of education in a civilized society that agrees with my sentiment was posted on October 17, 2019 on PT Essays, and it reads as following. Education is one of the most fundamental aspects of a civilized society. The mark of a strong civilization is one that educates its young to be as open-minded and compassionate as possible, one that trains them to understand the past and work towards a better future. Ladies and gentlemen, if we cannot work towards a better future, how can we let the failures of our systems hold us back? But it is all the government's fault. No, it's the failure of our education system. That is the problem. In an article by Unity Environmental University, published on October 4, 2023, stated that in democratic nations, the people, the folk, choose their leaders and government representatives. So, educated citizens will not be swayed by unethical and corrupt politicians. They will hold their politicians accountable for the wrongdoings and shortcomings and would make beneficial choices to the society as a whole. Ladies and gentlemen, because of our uneducated peers that are easily swayed by the promises, following promises and the snake oils, we struggle as a nation with what is known as a kakistocracy. A government of state referring to the most incompetent, ignorant, and least qualified citizens in power. South Africa's education debacle is the core problem of our crippling society, whether it being due to high unemployment rates for the modern workforce requires properly educated citizens, or government mismanagement and corruption, where the masses are easily brainwashed to ignore the government's shortcomings and just to blame the past, instead of addressing the problem, the failure of education and the weaponization of it to turn brother against brother. Ladies and gentlemen, to destroy a nation doesn't require the use of large atomic bombs or long-range missiles. It only needs to dismantle the education system. For I will leave you with the following thought. When the systems of education fail, joblessness rise, everything goes bad, and the key thing that contributes to the sentiment has been captured in one of the 20th century's most influential novels, Lord of the Flies, written by William Golding, where he stated that civilization quickly crumbled, and it led to brutal violence without the structures formed by the educated system, proving that education is crucial to the civilizational survival of the human race. So I will lead to ask the question at the beginning of the speech again. How would you go about to destroy a nation?